Has this ever actually happened in the real world, where you have stopped violence based on something that was brought to your attention?
She sat in that courtroom laughing like this was all a badly told joke, not charges that could see her sentenced to life for murder. This 33-year-old mother of three believed a jury would side with her. Her lawyers described her as a grieving widow who had lost her husband unexpectedly. They claimed she had even written a book in honor of her husband about raising their children alone. For a moment, the defense seemed to be working. The court was listening. But then prosecutors laid out the evidence, the text messages, the fentanyl purchases, the life insurance policies, and everything changed. What you're about to see is the case building against Kouri Richins and what prosecutors claim really happened. The evidence they say proves she wasn't the grieving widow she appeared to be. A trial that could determine whether she ever goes home again. Eric Richins was dead. What happened in that bedroom in Kamas, Utah would later be pieced together through phone records, financial documents, and witness testimony. This is the case of a real estate agent whose celebration drink at home led to a life-altering investigation. And every single detail I'm about to show you has been verified through court records, police reports, toxicology findings, and prosecution filings. Before we go any further, take a second to support the channel. If you're drawn to real cases told with depth, evidence, and the full story behind the headlines, make sure you like this video and subscribe. It helps this channel grow. It tells YouTube to push stories like this to more people, and it ensures you don't miss the next case when it drops. Now, let's get into what really happened. Eric Richins was 39 years old. He ran a stonemasonry business he'd built from the ground up, coached his boys' sports teams on weekends, and spent his free time hunting in the Utah wilderness he'd grown up in. By most accounts, he was deeply committed to his sons, the kind of father who showed up every time. On the night of his death, the family had reason to celebrate. His wife, Kouri, had just closed on a sprawling 20,000-square-foot estate in Heber City, a property that could net $12 million if everything played out right. Eric's mother, Lisa Darden, had come by for the evening. Kouri made Eric a Moscow Mule, a celebratory drink, she said. She brought it to him in their bedroom, where he sat on the edge of the bed, and then she went to sleep in one of their children's rooms. The child had been having nightmares, she explained later. She said she woke just after 3 a.m. and walked back to their room. Eric was cold. She told investigators she had tried to revive him herself before calling 911 at 3:22 a.m. When paramedics arrived, they found a man who had been dead for hours, and they noticed something that didn't line up. Kouri said she had performed CPR. The blood evidence in the room said otherwise. Weeks later, the autopsy delivered a result that reframed everything. Eric Richins had not simply died. He had been poisoned. The medical examiner found illicit fentanyl in his system. Not a trace, not an accidental dose. Approximately 5 times the amount required to kill a healthy adult. It had been taken orally. 20,000 nanograms per milliliter remained in his stomach. In the days that followed Eric's death, Kouri closed on the Heber City property alone. Then she threw a party at the house. Friends came over. There was drinking. There was laughter. Eric had been gone less than 2 weeks. His family was not surprised. They had been afraid for months. Eric had told them directly. If anything happened to him, Kouri was responsible. He had begged them to remember that. But investigators would eventually learn that the night Eric died wasn't the first time someone had tried to end his life. 3 weeks earlier, on Valentine's Day, Kouri had brought him his favorite sandwich from a local diner. She left it on the seat of his truck with a love note. Eric took one bite. Within minutes, he was covered in hives. His throat began to close. But the reaction came on fast and fierce. He grabbed his son's EpiPen, injected himself, then drank an entire bottle of Benadryl before losing consciousness for hours. When he came to, he called his business partner. He knew exactly what he believed had happened. He said his wife was trying to kill him. 3 days after that, prosecutors allege, Kouri went back to her source. The fentanyl she'd used hadn't been potent enough. She needed something stronger. She allegedly asked for more pills specifically. And then, on February 15th, the morning after the Valentine's Day incident, she texted her lover. The message, later entered into evidence, read, "If he could just go away, life would be so perfect." 2 weeks after that, she sent another message. "Life is going to be different, I promise. Hang in there until Friday." On Friday, Eric Richins was dead. To understand why prosecutors believe Kouri had every reason to want her husband gone, you have to understand what investigators found when they started pulling at the financial threads of their marriage. Eric had built something real. His stonemasonry company, Scene Masonry, brought in roughly $1 million a year. Kouri, who held a master's degree from Utah State University, had launched her own real estate venture in 2019. On paper, they looked like a power couple. The reality was far more precarious. Without Eric's knowledge, Kouri had taken out a $250,000 home equity line of credit on their family home, a home in his name, by signing the loan documents using his power of attorney. Between 2019 and 2020, she allegedly withdrew $100,000 from his bank accounts without telling him, and she borrowed $30,000 more on his credit cards. When Eric found out, she promised to repay it. She never did. In October 2020, Eric quietly met with a divorce attorney, then an estate planning attorney. He rewrote his will. He created the Eric Richins Living Trust and named his sister Katie as the person in control, not Kouri. He transferred his business interest into the trust. He changed the beneficiary on his $500,000 life insurance policy from Kouri to the trust. He told none of this to his wife. But he did tell his family why he was doing it. He was afraid Kouri might kill him for the money, and he wanted to make sure his boys would be taken care of if she tried. By December 2021, a forensic accountant would later testify, Kouri owed approximately $4 million in debt. She owned 15 properties. She was making nearly 100 debt payments a month. At least one payment exceeded $5,000 per week. Her real estate company alone owed lenders more than $1.8 million at the time of Eric's death. Eric's estate was worth approximately $5 million. And Kouri, prosecutors say, had been quietly purchasing life insurance policies on him for years, at least 4 between 2015 and 2017, totaling nearly $2 million in death benefit. On January 1st, 2022, she attempted to change the beneficiary on his largest policy to name herself as the sole recipient. Eric received an alert. He switched it back immediately. But Kouri wasn't finished. 10 days before the Valentine's Day incident, a new $100,000 policy on Eric's life went into effect. When Summit County Detective Jeff O'Driscoll first interviewed Kouri after Eric's death, he later testified that she struck him as cheerful, open, almost eager. She seemed, he said, a little too happy to talk. Then investigators pulled her phone records. Digital forensics testimony revealed that in the weeks leading up to Valentine's Day, Kouri had exchanged approximately 30 text messages, later deleted, with someone prosecutors identified as her drug source. She had been in near constant contact with a man she was romantically involved with since at least November 2021. They texted every day. And in December 2021, while wrapping Christmas gifts with a witness present, Kouri allegedly said that in many ways it would simply be better if Eric were dead. That same month, she booked a 5-night romantic vacation to a resort in St. Martin. For 2. The trip was scheduled for April 2022, the month after Eric's death. Investigators also examined her Google search history. What they found was not the browsing of a grieving widow. In the months following Eric's death, her phone was used to search. How do police and forensic analysts recover deleted data from phones? Can cops uncover deleted messages, iPhone? How to permanently delete information from an iPhone remotely? Luxury prisons for the rich in America. And this one. If someone is poisoned, what does it go down on the death certificate as? The fentanyl prosecutors alleged came through Kouri's housekeeper, a woman named Carmen Lauer. According to testimony, Lauer admitted to obtaining 15 to 30 fentanyl pills for Kouri on 2 separate occasions. The first delivery allegedly happened around February 11th or 12th, days before Valentine's Day. She got the pills from a man named Robert Crozier. She handed them to Kouri directly. Kouri allegedly paid $900. After Eric survived the Valentine's Day attempt, prosecutors say Kouri went back to Lauer on February 26th. She needed another $900 worth of pills, something stronger. 6 days later, Eric was dead. On May 8th, 2023, more than a year after Eric's death, Kouri Richins was arrested. She was charged with aggravated murder and 3 counts of possession of a controlled substance with intent to distribute. In the time between Eric dying and her arrest, Kouri had written a children's book. She titled it, "Are You With Me?" It told the story of a young boy trying to understand where his father had gone. The cover showed that father as an angel, wearing a trucker hat, watching over his sons from above. Yet the answer he gives his child in the book's final pages: "Yes, I am with you." She self-published it in March 2023, exactly 1 year after Eric died. In April, she appeared on a local morning show to promote it, describing her personal framework for grief, connection, continuity, care, and speaking warmly about keeping a lost loved one's spirit alive in your home.
I'm new to all of this, so kind of doing all, research and reading books and things to try and understand, not only how to grieve as a widow, as a wife, but also, with my kids, how to help them understand what just happened. And what I have kind of found is, as I mentioned, it's kind of the 3 C's is how I visualize it. And it's, connection, continuity, and care. And it's, making sure connection is the major one, and making sure that their spirit is always alive in your home, and memories are always brought up, and doing things that your loved ones love to do, whether it's riding bikes or their favorite dinner, and just constantly, talking about that.
The host smiled sympathetically throughout. Investigators had already been building their case for months. 2 weeks before her arrest, Kouri emailed Summit County investigators to address questions about vacations she'd taken since Eric's death. She wrote that she had traveled to Spain and Mexico with her children. She wrote that money had never been a source of tension in their marriage. She wrote that she was cooperating fully and only wanted the investigation to end so she could finally grieve her husband and move forward. 4 days later, she was in handcuffs. At Kouri's bail hearing, Eric's sister Amy stood and read her victim impact statement aloud.
Eric died under horrendous circumstances. I am tormented at the thought of what he endured. I play it out in my mind. I go through the terrible sequence of events. I wonder when he realized he was in mortal danger. I wonder what Kouri may have said to him in his last moments.
Judge Richard Morasic spent very little time deliberating. Kouri Richins would remain in custody. In the months that followed, the charges multiplied. Attempted aggravated murder related to Valentine's Day. 2 counts of mortgage fraud. 2 counts of insurance fraud. 3 counts of forgery. Then, like in July 2024, prosecutors filed 26 additional charges in a separate financial crimes case: money laundering, bad checks, communications fraud, and a pattern of unlawful activity that encompassed the entire arc of alleged crimes from the insurance applications through the murder. Then came a complication. Robert Crozier, the man who had allegedly supplied the fentanyl to the housekeeper, recanted his statement. In an interview with prosecutors in April 2024, he said he never sold fentanyl. He sold oxycodone. He couldn't remember telling detectives otherwise, he said. He was detoxing at the time of the original interview. He wasn't in his right mind. Kouri's defense team moved immediately. If the state couldn't prove fentanyl made it into her hands, they argued, the state had no case. Judge Morasic denied the motion to reconsider bail. He acknowledged the recantation, but noted it came more than 2 years after the events in question. The original statement had been made while the events were still fresh. And there was other evidence: financial records, search histories, inconsistent statements to first responders, a housekeeper who believed to her core that what she handed to Kouri were fentanyl pills. At the preliminary hearing in August 2024, prosecutors called 3 witnesses: the lead detective, a digital forensics consultant, and a forensic accountant. Defense attorneys pushed back on methodology, on the reliability of the software used to analyze phone data, on whether the financial picture was as damning as the prosecution claimed.
On May 10th of 2022, did that phone access a site for an article entitled "How Do Police and Forensic Analysts Recover Deleted Data from Phones"?
Yes.
Did that phone, was a query placed in that phone, quote, "Can cops, period, uncover deleted, period, messages, iPhone," close quote?
Yes.
Did that phone search, quote, "How to permanently delete information from an iPhone remotely," close quote?
Yes.
Did that phone search, quote, "Luxury prisons for the rich in America"?
It did.
Did that phone search, quote, "If someone is poisoned, what does it go down on the death certificate as," close quote?
They pointed out that no fentanyl pills had ever been found in the Richins' home. They argued Eric may have been aware of transactions Kouri made in his name. On August 27, 2024, Judge Mrazek ruled the case would proceed to trial on all 11 counts, including aggravated murder and attempted aggravated murder. There was still one more piece of evidence. While Kouri sat in Summit County Jail awaiting trial, officials discovered handwritten papers in her cell. Prosecutors called it a letter. Kouri called it a novel, a 65-page work of fiction titled "To Hell and Back," with a chapter called "Walk the Dog," that she said was inspired by her own life but deliberately fictionalized. On a jailhouse phone call, she told her brother Ronnie not to worry. "None of this can be used against me. This is only a book." Prosecutors saw it differently. Yet they alleged the document contained Kouri's first-hand account of the night Eric died. The timeline, her movements, what he consumed, as well as instructions for her brother to provide false testimony. Judge Mrazek allowed portions of it into evidence. He also granted a protective order limiting Kouri's contact with her family until trial. As of early 2026, Kouri Richins remains in Summit County Jail. She has been denied bail 3 times. She faces 9 felony charges in the murder case and 26 additional charges in the financial crimes case. If convicted on the aggravated murder charge alone, she faces 25 years to life. Her defense team says they plan to call as many as 20 witnesses. They say Kouri has a constitutional right to take the stand, and that if she chooses to exercise it, her testimony will be substantial. And they say she is innocent. They say the truth will come out at trial. 3 boys are growing up without their father. A children's book with angel wings on the cover sits somewhere unread. And a courtroom in Summit County, Utah is still waiting for what comes next.